Item 10 is the Merrill Advisory Group for the First World War Centenary Memorial Project update. Could I please invite Jane Sheets to the table and David McGregor from the committee. Welcome, and look forward to your outline in support of the recommendation.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Your Worship and councillors. As you heard, my name is Jane Sheets and I'm from the Council Strategic Partnership team. Next to me is David McGregor, who is our Deputy Chair for the Working Party. The report provides an update on the progress for Te Kahu Ahi, the hearth, and we seek the endorsement of the completion date for the project for mid-2019. The Working Party have met several times, further enhancing the funding initiatives, our stakeholder management program and our communications plan. An element of the memorial is the commemoration of peace. It's remembering those who've been left behind. Peace celebrations took place in Auckland over 3 days in July 1919, and in July 2019 marks this centenary. The completion date aligns with the peace commemorations. July 2019 also falls within our funding timelines with our trust applications and our philanthropic sector. So we seek your endorsement for the completion date of mid-July 2019 to align with the centenary celebration of peace.
Thank you very much for that, Jane. Is there anything you want to add at this stage, David?
My role on the committee is as a sort of de facto representative of the military and veteran community, and the point that I have made in relation to the appropriate date for this memorial to be commissioned and officially opened, or that's probably the wrong word, but is fraught because I sense that there is a bit of commemoration fatigue in the community generally, and given the we presented on behalf of the Fields of Remembrance Trust to the governing body our proposals for Armistice Day 2018. Given the size and significance of that, we fully support the notion that the commissioning or the commissioned date of the project be July 2019. It was a significant celebration in 1919 in Auckland. Over 3 days. There was there was a Soldiers' Day, there was a Family Day, and there was a Children's Day. There was a significant parade in Queen Street, and it all culminated with some events in the Domain. That's the first point I'd like to. The second point I'd like to make is that I believe that a commemorative memorial is important for Auckland. Auckland Council has been involved in a number of commemorative events during the commemorative period, but there's no one focus in Auckland that will represent the 4-5-year commemorative period, 100 years since the Great War. So I support the recommendations of the report.
Thank you very much, Jane and David, and thank you, David, for the work on the Fields of Remembrance Trust. I think you and your people have done a fantastic job there, and your views representing the veterans community obviously weigh fairly heavily on the decision that we may make. Should we come first to questions of David and Jane? If there's any questions, or if there aren't any questions, we'll move just straight into comment. Questions first. Any questions? No questions. We'll move therefore into comment, and I recognise Councillor Chris Fletcher.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have had the privilege of working with Jane and David, local board members, members of the governing body, and also we've had the experience of Lindy Sainsbury, and of course you've heard from David McGregor as the Deputy Chair to me of the Working Party. The committee has met on a number of occasions, and it has become quite apparent to us that the purpose was, when we first brought this to the governing body 3 years ago, was to really recognise those who were at home during the First World War, the women who served, and that was particularly relevant to me. I had a great aunt who was a Red Cross nursing, decorated Red Cross nursing sister. It was to be as inclusive as possible. And as the committee drew down on the excellent work and very comprehensive work that had been undertaken by Councillor Mike Lee and Sandra Coney, we came to the realisation that a date that would really celebrate peace, and the more that we explored that and understood how Aucklanders responded in 1919, on top of every manga in Auckland there were bonfires, there was a sense of hope and there was a sense of celebration. And I think that we could really do something special in Auckland. So today is simply to seek your endorsement of that date. That is the sole purpose of bringing this to you. We are a working party. We require your support for that. There will be other matters that are very important, but we can't resolve any of those until we have your endorsement around that date. So we're looking to come back to you early next year where we can go into the details that will be required for you to understand in terms of giving it your tick-off. So I would like to move, Your Worship, the recommendations that are before you, and in so doing, thank all of the members of the Working Party. I know that Shell Chambers is here today and Desley's here. I think it's been really collaborative and cooperative work, and I think that this is very much in the spirit of what Aucklanders are expecting from us. And as David McGregor has quite rightfully said, there is a measure of there's a measure of fatigue in terms of World War I events. There is no other celebration of peace that I'm aware of. There's been, in the planning that we've undertaken, we haven't been able to identify. So this will be a first, not just for Auckland, but for New Zealand. And I think we could set an excellent example if this could be adopted.
Thank you very much. It's been moved by Councillor Lee. I'd be very happy to second that. And can I, before taking the next speaker, thank you, Chris Fletcher, for your chairing, and David for your Vice Chair's role in this. We have a call from Councillor Mike Lee.
Mr Mayor, due to your decision and which was supported by colleagues, I want no part of this, so I haven't moved anything, but I just want to make the point, without traversing the rather unhappy events that led to the situation, a virtue is being made of necessity. It would be unkind for me to go on further about that. However, my concern is this. This is very important for the people of Auckland, and in terms of the physical impact of the design as unmodified by the contractors, a significant amount of earthworks and concrete will be needed. Therefore, given the absolute sensitivity of the site, it is essential that the public be included in the resource consent application. In other words, this resource consent needs to be fully notified so that the people of Auckland can have input, because I'll make the point. The reason why this, the Domain Committee and the contractors could not reach agreement was because the contractors would not comply with the design brief, which was endorsed by the public and public stakeholders. So my request, Mr Mayor, is good luck with this. It's missed the bus as a World War I centenary commemoration. However, it's more important that what is built there is enduring and has the support of the people of Auckland, and they must be included in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no further speakers, so, Councillor John Watson.
Thank you, and it's kind of more in the way of a rhetorical question that follows on from Councillor Lee. I see in the timeline that the key steps as they go to the design, include ongoing engagement with key stakeholders. That's happening now, by all accounts, November 2017, and that's in preparation for the resource consent application. So I'm not exactly sure, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I've missed something, in terms of what final form this design might take, given the rather sort of tortuous path to where we are today. So I'm just wondering, as a governing body, what, if any, oversight or preview or whatever else might be appropriate we might have in terms of what the design is that emerges out of this. Now, I understand that, the delegation to the working party and all that. So I guess what I'm asking, Mr. Mayor, is that is there going to be any opportunity for the public, as Mr. Councillor Lee suggested, and secondly, from my perspective as a councillor, whether we are going to have any heads up or oversight of the design, given some of the sensitivities at play here.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if
Councillor
I can
Fletcher.
respond to that, because I think it would be unfair. Jane is representing the strategic partnerships. The purpose of bringing this to you today was to get the endorsement on the date that we are working to. That will enable the working party to come together and actually then start to look at the sequencing. Right at the moment, the working party has been required to work to the parameters that you granted us, and that was to Armistice Day. So we've put a new proposition to you that will require us to meet together to actually discuss this with the officials, the implications of that on resource consent and funding. But may I say that there was superb work that was undertaken under the stewardship of Mike Lee and Sandra Coney. So in terms of the design, the actual essence of the design, the hearth, if you like, which was sort of to reflect the bonfires and the fires at home as families awaited the fate of their loved ones, that actual design will not be changed, but it will be the implementation of that design and the logistics around it and the funding that will go back to the working party now that you, if, as I anticipate may happen, you give your endorsement to the request that we have made of you today. May I also say, speaking on behalf of the working party, there is an absolute determination that there be no further ratepayers' money go into this. We see this as an opportunity for Aucklanders to come and show their support for this memorial to peace in such a way that it will not be a burden for ratepayers. So, David, I don't know whether you want to add to that, but that determination that we have will be reflected into the meeting that we will bring, the governing body that we will bring this back to early in the new year with those details that you request.
Great, thank you. That clarifies that issue. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, David and Jane, for your input. The item number 11 is the need to replace our representative on the Tupuna Monga Otamuki Makaurau Authority, given the resignation of Denise Lee from Council. Could I ask Dominic Wilson, please, to come to the table and talk briefly to the paper.
Tēnā koe, sir. Tēnā koutou katoa. Yes, you've heard that the key is that a council appointee has resigned from the Tupuna Monga Authority. And so this report begins a process for the replacement of that member by this governing body. You'll see also in the report that the process so far has to have that the governing body has chosen 3 governing body members and 3 local board members, and the person who has resigned was a councillor. So the process question for this board to consider is appointing a new councillor to the Tupuna Maunga Authority. You'll also see in the report, councillors, I've set out there repeated criteria that were initially used in previous decisions. So you can see the criteria proposed for such appointments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dominic. I think the paper is reasonably clear. Denise is no longer a councillor. We need to appoint a replacement from this body. What I'm proposing is that I ask for expressions of interest by the time of our next governing body meeting, and that we make a decision on the basis of each of you considering whether you would like to be on that particular board. But I, pro forma, will move the recommendations as set out on the screen there. Ask for a seconder, Councillor Simpson, and then open it up, first of all, for questions. So, Councillor Linda Cooper.
Thank you. Is there any reason, given we've got the Christmas and holiday period coming up and we pretty much do not a lot in January, if it is possible to wait for the by-election in February until we have a new member for Mangakiki Tamaki, who seems, that position seems to be really preferable because of the maunga in that area? Could we do that?
That's, I think, quite a good suggestion. I'm happy if it's the mood of a governing body to hold over the decision to the new year on this. We haven't been explicit in the recommendation, but I'll take a sense of council on that. Thank you for that suggestion. I think it's a good one. Okay, Councillor Christabi.
Thank you. I'd have to say this is one of the most enjoyable and productive bodies I've ever sat on. So I do urge members to consider it. It is a wonderful group of people, and I don't think I ever experienced a decision that was not by consensus, and I think that is to date the same.
Oh, nice.
It's amazing. Mr. Mayor, my question here is, we've got a resolution on the books that the members, that's our governing body resolution, that it has to be up to 3 councillors and 3 local board members. I think that is a resolution. So if it was to be the C, we'd have to rescind that one. That's probably a question. Yet the legislation from the Ngā Mana Whenua o Tamaki Makaurau, etc. Act says just 6 members appointed by Auckland Council. I'm wondering if we might be, maybe follow the legislation more than our resolution, and consider appointing not a political appointee, and consider a representative of the Auckland Volcanic Cone Society, or at least explore, who's in our community that could actually represent Aucklanders, because that is the task of the 6, is to represent Aucklanders, all Aucklanders, on the Tamaki Tupuna Maunga Authority. We could have some feedback from staff on that.
Dominic?
Sir, and to the councillor, certainly in the Act, the membership that's on the board is just 6 members appointed by the Auckland Council. There's no definition of which members. There was a decision, as Councillor Darby has correctly pointed out, about, I think, 2 years ago, to have the 3 councillors and 3 local board members. But of course that was a policy decision within this governing body.
So was that was a resolution? Yeah.
Yes, it was part of a resolution, yes.
So to vote on C today, you'd have to rescind that resolution, would you not?
It's a permissive resolution that if there's no replacement made, she may continue. She may not even wish to continue.
That was my question.
But I think that if we're holding the decision over effectively to February, that gives us the opportunity, first of all, to see if there is a councillor, including whoever may be elected in the by-election, whether there's a desire to be a representative of this governing body on the board. If there's an overwhelming desire by a councillor, I'd give priority to the councillor. If there wasn't an overwhelming desire, then your suggestion of somebody outside, but appointed by this council is one that could be considered. But I don't think that requires us to change the resolution that we have in front of us at the moment. But I've taken on board the 2 points that Councillor Darby and Councillor Cooper have made. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship. When is the first meeting of the authority in 2018?
Dominic?
The first meeting is in February. I believe it's the 8th or the 12th. I'm sorry, but it's in the first couple of weeks of February.
Right, so my second question is that have we checked that Denise Lee is available on that date? What day of the week is that? If she is going to stay? I'm just, you know, it would be unfortunate if we didn't have a full representation at the meeting and at the first meeting. It's a Thursday. Well, chances are in February on the 8th she may not be in Auckland.
She may, but I
sorry,
don't.
It's not Waitangi week. She will be actually.
Yeah. Look, it wouldn't be the end of the world if we weren't fully represented on that meeting. I may add just the D that we seek expressions of interest from councillors to fill the vacancy, and when I have the answer to that question, we'll know whether we need to address the other one raised by Councillor Darby.
So
we can also talk to Denise Lee to see if she, in the interim, wants to continue that role. But
and I think she does. I've just spoken. But I was just going to. Do you want to give a timeline?
So I'm sorry. I'm getting contrary information. I've been advised that she doesn't want to fill that role. But we can clarify that if you like, Councillor.
So my question was, why don't we put it in a resolution somewhere when we're going to make a decision? If it's in the first quarter of 2018, that's when we need to make a decision. This at the moment just leaves the whole thing.
That we can appoint a replacement governing body member to the Monga Authority at the February governing body meeting. Happy to accept that as an amendment to Councillor Darby.
Thank you. So it's the A, the B, the C goes, and then you're modifying the D. Can I...
That's C. It's not necessary that it goes. It's simply stating the fact that if she wished, she is able to continue to represent us here. It may not be needed, but it doesn't do any harm being on the book.
Sorry, Your Worship. She's happy in the short term to continue.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, this proposal that I put is to consider external, like a Volcanic Cone Society member, or there might be other groups. So I wouldn't mind seeing that come back in the report.
You could add to D, request an expression of interest from councillors to fill the vacancy, and in the absence of any such expression, explore alternative representation of the council on the Monga. An alternative representative, appointing an alternative representative.
That's fine.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Hills.
Yes, I don't want to further prolong this, but I support Councillor Cooper's point. If we say at the February governing body meeting, the new member or the new councillor won't be, so we should put it to the March one, because we would have already missed the February Monga.
Sorry, what's the date, Dominic? Can you help me with the date of the by-election?
26th of Feb, I think.
Oh, okay. It's the end of February?
I think so, yeah. 26, I think. But
And when's the governing body meeting?
About then.
It doesn't say that.
But we would.
Okay, let's...
Well, hold on.
It's easy enough. By the March 2018 governing body meeting, and if we have a new representative from Manga Kia Kia, we may be able to do it at the February meeting. Okay, that covers your point. Right. No, Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Your Worship, and as current Deputy Chair of Tupuna Monga Authority, I just want to point out one that the 27th of November is our first meeting, and then we've also got another one on the 15th of December, and the one in February is the 9th of February, which is a Friday. So with these 3 meetings that will happen, I do, however, support Councillor Cooper's suggestion around waiting, because I think it's important that we do wait for the by-election. But I just wanted to bring those on the table, Your Worship, that there's 3 Tupuna Monga Authority, dependent on what happens with the by-election. It may miss 4 meetings But I'll just put that on the table.
And we'll know when we've talked to Councillor Lee whether or not, former Councillor Lee, whether or not she's prepared to fill in for those meetings. Okay.
Sorry, Your Worship, supplementary to that particular comment then. I mean, if there was somebody in the interim to attend the 4 meetings, and if one of the council laws said, look, I'll fill in that interim place, wouldn't that be a good option if they are willing to put their hand up to say, look, I will cover these 4 meetings while this is happening? For example, Councillor Hills might want to put his hand up in regards to the 4 meetings that we have left. I just think that in regards to that, around our maunga is having an elected member on the Tupuna Maunga Authority.
That's an alternative option, but no councillor has indicated to me that they wish to do that, but I'm happy to ask any councillor if they would wish to work on an interim basis.
I'm happy to do that.
Councillor Clow, in which case we need to revisit if that's the... I mean, I think it's better to have a representative there than a former representative there, is my own view. But that would be not a further E, I think. It would be appoint an interim replacement on the governing body.
From the governing body.
From the governing body. No, it would be appoint Councillor Ross Clow as an interim as an interim governing body member to the Tupuna. And then you'd need to change C, or delete C, no longer needed, and D becomes the new C. Request an expression of interest from councillors to permanently fill the vacancy, and the rest of the sentence, to permanently fill the vacancy, I think needs to be there. Okay, that's been a movable feast, but we've probably reached a happy place on it. Councillor Fletcher.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to just raise, I had the privilege of being the Deputy Chair to Paul Majuri on the start-up, and I think why it was actually important to have members of the governing body there was to assist with the shepherding of the funding, the strategy documents and the funding, and in recognising that, Justine Smith, who is here and not that much longer with council, she and Scott Silver were just excellent officers to the Maunga Authority, and so to a degree, a lot of that work has been complete, but there will be ongoing issues that I think pertain to funding. When you look at what is currently in the long-term plan and what is likely to be in the long-term plan refresh, you have issues that are going to require some careful stewardship. So it was not to in any way denigrate the proposal by Councillor Darby, but just simply to explain the justification of the former council as to why it wanted governing body members at that time. So it was just by way of explanation.
Yeah, I think we'd probably have that discussion in March to determine, so that we could further. The idea that's been put up, I think, is an interesting idea, but there'll be pros and cons to it, and I think we'll be able to have a full discussion in March before we make that decision. Okay, so let's just check. Yep, I think that's in the shape it should be. Please give us the discretion to make any minor grammatical editing changes to that. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried.